Passing square is a very simple exercise, but it's jam-packed with skills and coaching points to both benefit your players and your reputation as a coach. It can be used on the pitch or is ideal within a small space, such as a gym. Hi, this is Keith Isles. Thank you very much for viewing my soccer coaching video. I do hope you find it beneficial. If you do, please remember to hit the like button and also to share with your colleagues. Then subscribe so you don't miss the new videos that I'll bring out. And above all, enjoy your football. Let's get going. Now, this is a session that would be used at a pro club, and I think it's ideal for a grassroots club as effective use of time. I've used this on a regular basis for pre-season fitness training and on a regular basis throughout the season as a warm-up for adults because it combines fitness as well as practicing technical skills. It's ideal as far as I'm concerned for youth players because they're free to practice their skills and to learn without having opposition. In the video, I'll be covering the setup, the number of players that you will use, and also what happens if you don't have a precise number. Don't know about you, but the number of coaching manuals I've seen when they all work on the basis of the ideal number of players, I haven't had many sessions over the years where the ideal number of players have turned up, so we've got to use everyone. I'll talk to you about the coaching points that come out and what I've seen over the years, and then I'll cover lots of variations so that it keeps fresh for your players and keeps them engaged. So stay to the very end. So let's have a look at the setup. For this to work, then you need a minimum number of 8 players. That means 2 players on each corner. Initially, I would start with 1 football and even just walk through what's required of the players so that they can get an understanding. Then to start the session properly with 8 players, I would have 2 footballs, 1 on each opposite corner. The ideal number for this is 12 players to my mind. That means 3 players on each corner. I would work up to a maximum of 4 players. That's because I think that players will then end up just queuing and waiting for the next ball to come to them. But you've got to decide as a coach how good your players are and what they're capable of doing. If, as an example, you have 10 players, then I would have 3 players start on the corner where there's the football. This will make it easier for when the ball comes round for the next session, where there's enough players on the corner to handle that. Now, if you have 12 players, then I would look to target using 4 footballs. That's 1 on each corner. Really going to make your players work here. And as a coach, you've got to be prepared for this to look messy because footballs are going to go astray, even with the best players. So my tip is to have spare footballs just around the perimeter. That means when passes go astray, there's a player who can then just get one of the spare balls and the momentum is maintained for the session. Now, I've actually run this session with 10-year-olds who have whizzed the ball round playing one-touch football. Absolutely brilliant. And I've also run this session with adults, and we've actually run out of spare footballs because they've gone flying everywhere, believe me. But the fact of life is that this is actually training, and that's what you're there for, is to practice so that the players can actually improve. Sometimes when you get an outsider watching your session and they think, hellfire, that is really messy. But you as the coach have actually got to completely figure out that and just work on your players improving. Okay, so we'll see the layout now. State the obvious. 4 markers for each corner because it's a square. Now, these can be the what's called the Chinese hats, cones, or the flat discs. I actually like the flat discs simply because there's less chance of the ball being deflected and breaking up the session. Then I'll ask the question, where do you actually set up? If you have limited space, you might be sharing an artificial pitch or you might be in the gym, then that's dictated for you. But if you've actually got a pitch, then think about sticking this somewhere in the middle of the pitch, because what you're actually looking at is a session that builds relationships between midfielders and possibly defenders, or midfielders and the forwards. And this positioning makes it more realistic for your players. Start off with a basic 10 yards stroke meters for your younger players, because this is a basic pass and run. 15 meters yards for older youth players and adults, again, pass and run. Don't forget, if you're using this as a warm-up session for adults, then what they would do is jog to the next corner. But hey, you're the coach, so you set it up as you see fit, because this is going to depend upon the ability of your players. You might want to actually have a small square that makes it very tight to test the touch of your players. And say, for example, say play 1 touch or 2 touch around the area. And on occasions, I've actually experimented with having no markers at all. I just tell the players to go out, what's required, because they know, and set it up yourself. And then you, as the coach, just stand back and see how it evolves. I think you'd be pleasantly surprised. Because don't forget, when it actually comes to the match day, they'll be playing on the pitch where there aren't any markers. Here we have the ideal setup with 3 players on each corner. Now, this actually gives the player a chance to get to the next station before having to play the next ball. And to remind you, this is a combination of technique and fitness session. I would use this as a pre-season session and also during the season for my players. So initially you might just say jog to the next station, or you might then building up, say, sprint as fast as you can, because that's what they're going to be doing in a game, and that's what you're going to be looking at, especially switching defense into attack. This shows 4 footballs, 1 on each corner. I would only start a session like this with players that have the technique and actually know what's required. If this is a new session to your players, I would start with 1 football and walk through the session so that they know what's required, then build it up to 2, and then ideally, I'm sure within a couple of weeks, your players will be playing with 4 footballs. Initially, you may want to actually say to the players, this is the direction we're going to be playing, possibly for younger players. I like to empower the players, and I would delegate one of the players to take charge and say which way the ball is going to be played. If you start with just 1 football, or perhaps 2, then the player will play in the very next spare man on the next cone. If you have 4, then it's going to be the second man on the next cone. Player with the ball looks to play to the free player on the next station, and then they follow the pass. But let me make a coaching point here. I tell my players this is not actually a lesson in queuing, and I want to see all of the receivers moving away before they check back to receive the ball. And then the player's first touch sets up the direction for the next pass. The next receiver needs to be thinking about their movement before his passer actually receives his pass, and calling for the ball. Very, very important. All of the passes should be made outside the coned area. Then you, as the coach, shout out, change direction, to make sure that it doesn't get boring and the players actually practice going the other way and organising themselves as well. Or alternatively, delegate to one of the players to shout out change. Now you've got this session up and running, let's look at some variations to the exercises and also to the shape of the practice area. This is going to keep the session fresh and challenge your players over the coming weeks. This is always the next exercise that I move on to. Very simply, the passer plays to the receiver sets the ball back and moves off for a return pass, and it's called a 1-2 or a give and go wherever you are in the world. Then the receiver does the same on the next corner. Remember to tell both players to call for the move. You might start with 1 to 2 footballs for this exercise, and this is where you change the dimensions to perhaps 15 yards or meters to 20 yards or meters. Coaching points I would look for is the timing of the movements, the weight of the pass, and the control and touch of the players. Very hot topic for me as a coach is to get my players to always look to play forward whenever they can. And to do this, they need to receive the ball half turned. Can't always do this in a game. Sometimes it's a run onto a pass, or they would have to shield it and play back to keep possession. In this session here, we see the receiver coming back halfway, receiving the ball half turned to then run to the corner at speed, and then either a quick change of direction and pass, or alternatively, you might like to bring into play passing with the outside of the foot at the corner to have a disguise pass. Again, you're the coach. Let me talk about the distances and the dimensions of the areas again. Don't forget, you're the coach, so you change the area as you see appropriate. I've actually run sessions where we've started off on one size and changed simply because either too small and made it bigger so that the session works. This is all down to the ability of your players and how challenging testing that you want to make it. And of course, the exercises the players are being asked to carry out. Oh, yes, this is a doozy to get your players to work hard and also to concentrate. Right, pay attention at the back. Firstly, all players run to the next corner, no matter where the ball goes. And you, as a coach, are going to just sit back and see what happens. The first pass is diagonal to the opposite corner. Then the receiver sets the ball back and runs to the next corner. The next receiver plays diagonal again, and then the fourth receiver sets the ball back. And the players simply repeat this all the way around the square. You might want to start the session with just one football, but certainly a maximum of 2 for this one. Again, fitness is a byproduct with sprinting to the next cone, and the players should really be working hard for you. And this is another session to make your players concentrate and to work hard. Again, all the players run to the next corner, no matter where their pass goes. Right, first pass is diagonal. The receiver sets the ball back and runs to the next corner. The third player then passes diagonally, and the fourth player plays forward and follows their pass home. I recommend that you start with one ball for this session, perhaps get up to 2, see how you go. With all the sessions, I should remind you to always call change. This is going to challenge your players to reorganize. Now, I've given you lots of sessions here with perfectly laid out 90-degree angles, exact distances between each cone. But let's be blunt, that isn't what you get on a football pitch, is it? Or in a game. So I will introduce for you the odd shape. And this is different distances between the cones and different angles, because that's precisely what your players will be doing in the game. I don't want my players, the midfield players, for example, all playing in a line. I will be looking for depth and cover as one goes forward or people play forward. Certainly, the forwards would not be playing in a line. You will have one man coming off. So, the sessions at the start can be used for working on fitness and also just practicing technique. But if you introduce the odd shape and some of the sessions that I did after the warm up and just pass and run around the square, then you'll find this more realistic to a game. An experiment with putting in another station, another cone to make it five. This could be where you have a forward, for example. Ask your players to do different things at different stations. For example, just make a simple pass and then they turn and play into the next man, or play a 1-2. This means that your players have got to remember what to do, and it's challenging them all the time. So when they get to station number 3, for example, they have to remember that that's where the ball is set back. Experiment, see how it goes. Also, introducing the extra station is how you can accommodate the numbers that you'll realistically get at your sessions compared to the perfect coaching manual. By having the additional station, it means that your players are spread out and they can get plenty of touches within the session, which is what it's all about. This is another exercise to make your players think. So you already have the odd shape, which you've been working with. Now, combine it with a second grid. And depending on if there's an issue with the amount of space available for you or the number of players that you have, then you could just make this triangles with 3 stations for the reds and 3 stations for the yellows. And the idea is that if a player receives a ball on the red station, then their next pass must be to another red station, and the same for the yellows. Then you, as the coach, have a choice for setting this up. Either the players can make a pass and then they run to the very next station. So, for example, red, then to the yellow, then to red, etc., etc. Or you could have one team just staying on the red and another team just staying on the yellow. And again, there's a choice for doing this. It could be that your players run on the red team anti-clockwise and the yellow team plays clockwise. And your players will get so much out of this session. It isn't just a question of practicing their passing skills. You're also asking them to concentrate, timing of their pass, because potentially there could be a player in the way or the other football crossing, and they're going to have to play with their heads up and scanning the scene just to see what's going on and making their decisions. I would stick with just 2 footballs for this session, one for the yellows and another one for the reds. And what they're doing is passing and following their pass, either clockwise or anti-clockwise, as you see fit as the coach. So experiment, see what comes out of it. All of these practices are working on the fundamental skills, and these are body shape, working on players' touch, their control, and because it's unopposed, they can actually practice their skills without any fear. And it's the timing of their runs and the timing of their passes. And as well as these basic fundamental skills that your players are practicing, there's additional benefits coming out. For example, leadership and taking charge of sessions. I've said about delegating to a player to start off or the direction or when they play the first ball. I also tell them what the session's going to be and then just say, off you go, set it up yourselves. And this adds to decision making, not just decision making of where and when to make a pass, but also maintaining the quality of the session. As a coach, I would often let the session run, and if there's a need to step in, I would then stop it and I'd go in and ask the question, what do we think of the quality of what we're doing? And then see what the players have to say. And if they actually think that there's an issue, that the quality isn't good enough, I would actually ask them and say, well, why haven't you done anything about it? Why are you still carrying on? Because that's what you actually want in a game. I'm looking to encourage captains, leaders all around the pitch, and I would expect that to be built on the training field. And of course, there's working on communication skills. Not just skills for calling for the ball, actually instructing their teammates, acting as another pair of eyes. And as your team evolves over the years, then it's building rapport with their teammates, which all adds to getting a successful team over the seasons. That's it. Thank you very much indeed for watching the video. I do hope you have got a lot out of it, both for you and your players. Hit the like button and don't forget to share with your colleagues and subscribe so you don't miss any new videos that I bring out. And above all, enjoy your football. Take care.